Hello and welcome to Star Flag Media. I'm your host Anthony, and this video is going to focus on something a little bit different. I wanted to go over one of my favorite consoles of all time, the Nintendo GameCube. It is one of the systems that I really started to collect for back in the day, and today what I'm going to do is go over the games that I personally own for the Nintendo GameCube. This is going to be a multi-part series. Today we'll focus on 11 games in alphabetical order. Well, here's the first one. 1080 Avalanche is Nintendo's first-party snowboarding follow-up to their N64 game released in 2003. The game is a downhill racing game that focuses more on speed than stunts or tricks. The game was beautiful at the time, sporting 480p enhanced definition and Dolby Pro Logic 2 sound. You could also link 4 GameCubes together with the broadband adapter for a LAN party and go up to 16 players. 1080 Avalanche is an 8 out of 10. Animal Crossing on the Nintendo GameCube, released originally as Animal Forest on the Nintendo 64. It was later ported over to the Cube. Dubbed a communication game by the Big N, you can live the life of a villager who moves into a town full of, well, you guessed it, animals. You can decorate your house, go around the village, meet everyone, pick flowers, see your neighbors leave and new ones move into the town. You can celebrate different holidays, and even discover hidden NES games. Fully playable ROMs made this game an addictive collectathon. Animal Crossing on the Nintendo GameCube gets a 9 out of 10. Baten Kaitos, Eternal Wings, and Lost Ocean. November 2004 is Monolith Soft's RPG GameCube exclusive. Players assume the role of a guardian spirit who guides Callus and his party across island kingdoms that are floating in the sky. It has a unique card-based combat system. There was also a prequel brought out called Baten Kaitos Origins. I enjoyed that one a little less. This card-based combat system also included things like poker, or a type of poker game anyway, to defeat your enemies. It had really nice graphics for the time, and the lack of Japanese RPGs made this a welcome addition to anybody's GameCube library. Baten Kaitos Eternal Wings is now available on Nintendo Switch. Check it out. On the GameCube, this game is a 7 out of 10. Batman Vengeance, released as a launch title for the Nintendo GameCube. The game is based on the New Batman Adventures animated series. The entire voice cast reprises their roles as Batman investigates the death of the Joker after their last encounter. For the time, this game had beautiful cel-shaded graphics. The game got mixed reviews when it released, but personally, I actually enjoyed this action platformer quite a bit. Batman Vengeance gets a 7 out of 10. Beyond Good and Evil, the now cult classic action-adventure game released in 2003. The story follows Jade, a reporter, martial artist, working for the resistance movement. She's there to reveal a sinister alien conspiracy, gather evidence, battle enemies, solve puzzles, and eventually travel in space. This game was truly a gem that not many people played. It was later released with a full HD remake in 2011 on Xbox Live Arcade and PlayStation Network. And again, it seemed to have missed an audience. If you get a chance to pick this game up, do so. This game is a 9 out of 10. Bloody Roar Primal Fury is a gorgeous 2002 fighter that released as a GameCube exclusive. It has you fighting and transforming your characters into all sorts of beasts and animal forms. The variety of moves and unique look really set this game apart at the time. A later port called Bloody Roar Extreme came out on the Xbox. Bloody Roar Primal Fury gets an 8 out of 10. If anyone listens to our weekly podcast here, you know we speak highly of this next game, Burnout 2 Point of Impact. Criterion Games brings the sequel to its 2001 hit smash to the Nintendo GameCube. Tracks featuring all sorts of traffic make this racer one of the few where crashing was almost as fun as winning. So much so that they include Crash Mode, where you can earn high scores by causing the most damage in a crash. With great physics, this game was a must-have. Burnout 2 gets an 8 out of 10. Capcom vs. SNK EO. The GameCube version of this game also came out on Xbox and PlayStation 2. This is adding special C-stick attacks that already made the great Capcom vs. SNK 2 even more accessible to all players. We see bonus characters also make an appearance in this version, including Evil Ryu, Orochi Iori, Shin Akuma, and Ultimate Rugal. Adding grooves also alters playstyles. The GameCube offers 480p enhanced definition graphics, where the PlayStation 2 version was missing this. Capcom vs. SNK EO gets an 8 out of 10. Well, we're about halfway through the list now. So far, all those games that I've mentioned were really big parts of a reason to own a Nintendo GameCube, and hopefully the next half of the video will, focus on some more games that I really, really enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think. Chaos Field for the Nintendo GameCube is a 2004 bullet hell vertical shooter by Milestone. This had former compiled developers showing that they could make games just as good as their former team. This is not an easy game. It has you flipping between parallel worlds known as the Order Field and the Chaos Field. In the Order Field, gameplay is normal, but in the Chaos Field, enemy fires more bullets, hell breaks loose, but at the same time, you are given stronger weapons. Chaos Field is a really competent shooter and gets a 7 out of 10. Custom Robo on the Nintendo GameCube is the fourth game in the series, but it's the first one that makes its way outside of Japan. You pilot your Robo in a virtual arena called the Coliseum, where you engage in battle with other commanders. After defeating them, you gain points and can upgrade and customize your Robo. This was a really fun game, especially because it had a fun multiplayer aspect to it that reminded me a little bit of Power Stone. Custom Robo on the Nintendo GameCube gets a 7 out of 10. Dead to Rights. Well, after the success of The Matrix, Grand Theft Auto, and Max Payne, it seemed like everybody wanted a little crack at the action game that felt open world and had bullet time. Well, enter Dead to Rights. Jake Slate, with his canine Shadow, patrol Grant City to fight, it seems like every citizen on the street. He's on the pursuit to figure out who killed his father. Dead to Rights makes use of bullet time to try and steal a little thunder from Max Payne. Your K9 unit can also power up a meter and attack and bring you whatever your enemy was carrying. This game was a decent adventure on the GameCube. There was nothing really else on the GameCube like it at the time, so it gets an 8 out of 10. Def Jam Vendetta is a 3D pro wrestling game developed by Aki Corp. It released for the GameCube on April 1st, 2003. This was EA's first game in their Def Jam licensed hip-hop games. Several artists are featured in this game like DMX, Method Man, Redman, and Ludacris. The gameplay uses the Aki engine featured in games like WCW vs. the NWO Revenge and WWF No Mercy. This game is my personal favorite wrestling game in the 6th generation of consoles. Def Jam Vendetta is a 9 out of 10.
Nori, Capone, Luda, Redman, DMX. You want a shot at me, you gotta make it past these brothers. It's a dangerous world out here. Seems every time I turn around, there's another young buck wants to take me on. I lay down for no man. You want to take what's mine, you gotta beat me. But nobody ever beats me.
Def Jam Fight for New York is a 3D fighting game and follow-up to Def Jam Vendetta. This game steps away from the wrestling ring and is more focused on fighting in the streets. New rappers show up for the sequel like Lil Kim, Snoop Dogg, and Busta Rhymes. Players can choose from 5 styles to fight from. To me personally, moving away from the wrestling ring made me lose interest fast. Def Jam Fight for New York is a 7 out of 10. Donkey Konga is a rhythm-based game starring Donkey Kong. This game is developed by Namco, who also makes Taiko Drum Master. You play using the unique bongo drum controllers, and you time hits and claps to the beat of songs like Louie Louie, We Will Rock You, and also tracks from the Mario or Zelda series. There were 2 follow-up games to this series. Donkey Konga is a 7 out of 10. Donkey Kong Jungle Beat came out in 2004 and also uses the DK bongos as a controller. However, this game is a platformer where you jump, climb, collect bananas, and fight your enemies. This was an unexpectedly fun game with beautiful 2.5D visuals, at a time when 3D was the only real option for platformers. Boss fights were also incredibly fun. Donkey Kong Jungle Beat is an 8 out of 10. Enter the Matrix, developed by Shiny Entertainment. This game is based on the Matrix movies. Its story runs canon with the films, and features over 1 hour of new footage shot exclusively for the game. If you wanted the full story, you needed to play Enter the Matrix.
Well, that brings us halfway through our list for this episode.
And yeah, so far all of those have been amazing. Games that I remember fondly, and here comes the second half of the video, and hopefully you're enjoying the video as much as I am so far. So yeah, let's get on with the next game. Eternal Darkness: Sanity's Requiem. Developed by Silicon Knights, exclusively on Nintendo GameCube, this game is a psychological adventure game. This is Nintendo's first ever M-rated game. The game had some unique gameplay mechanics called the Sanity Effect, which Nintendo actually went out and patented. Once your sanity meter runs out, subtle changes happen to the environment, and random, unusual events start occurring. This game made sure to mess with your head and question everything about Survivor games. Eternal Darkness is a 9 out of 10.
Miss Roivas, is that your grandfather, Edward?
Yes, it's him. He's wearing our family ring.
Extreme G3 is a futuristic racer, also known as XG3. You choose from 12 riders through 10 tracks with twists, drops, and sharp turns. There are weapons which you buy with money won in the game. This game is very fast-paced and a very nice alternative to F-Zero. Extreme G3 is an 8 out of 10. F-Zero GX, in my opinion, is the pinnacle of the F-Zero series to this day. Developed by Sega for the GameCube, running at a smooth 60 frames per second, and if you own an upscale TV at the time, you could get the component cables and get a stunning 480p widescreen support. The gameplay can be described in one word: hard. It will take a lot of practice to master F-Zero GX, but it is worth it. F-Zero GX gets a 9 out of 10. Final Fantasy: The Crystal Chronicles. After Nintendo opted for cartridges for the Nintendo 64, Square moved Final Fantasy over to the PlayStation, and skipped Nintendo for the entire life of the N64. Well, after the failure of the film Final Fantasy Spirits Within, Square decided Nintendo wasn't so bad after all, and brought Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles as a GameCube exclusive. The game features a group of adventurers who protect their village crystals that shields them from the poison in the world. Featuring a unique bubble that you sit in while holding a bucket, this game allows for up to 4 players and can link your Game Boy Advance to use as a second screen or even a controller. Avoid the remake as it's online multiplayer only. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles gets an 8 out of 10. Fire Emblem Path of Radiance is a tactical RPG in which players take control of Ike and his crew across multiple battle scenarios. The story takes place across the continent of Tellius. The kingdom of Crimea gets invaded, and it's up to Ike to restore Crimea's air. Gorgeous graphics and amazing gameplay make Path of Radiance a must-have in any Nintendo GameCube collection. Overall, this game gets a 9 out of 10. Freakstyle is a 2002 motocross racing video game for the PlayStation 2, Game Boy Advance, and of course the GameCube. There are 4 levels of gameplay: the circuit, a quick race, freestyle, and free run. The game features an assortment of real-life FMX riders, which include Mike Metzger, Brian Deegan, Mike Jones, as well as professional motocross riders, which include Steffi Bao, Jessica Patterson, and Greg Albertin. This game was very good to look at the time, fun to play, had lots of courses, and great gameplay. Freakstyle gets an 8 out of 10. Gauntlet Dark Legacy is an expansion to one of my favorite Nintendo 64 games, Gauntlet Legends. This game plays similarly, but with new levels, items, characters, and combat capabilities. The player has options of performing a slow, strong, or a quick, weaker attack, as opposed to Legends, where there is only one type of attack. In Gauntlet Dark Legacy, the player can perform combos by using slow attacks and quick attacks in sequence, while engaged in melee combat. This game was a great expansion and follow-up to Gauntlet Legends. If you owned the Dreamcast port of Gauntlet Legends, elements of Dark Legacy were already in there. This is a fun game to pick up, and gets an 8 out of 10. Geist is a first-person shooter adventure game for the Nintendo GameCube, and marks Nintendo's second ever M-rated game, the other being Eternal Darkness. The gameplay features you as a disembodied spirit named Raimi. Raimi cannot interact with the physical world except through possessions. He can possess objects, people, even animals. There are many checkpoints and boss fights and tons of cutscenes to be had in this. Geist was one of those experiments that was kind of a mixed bag. Some elements were amazing, and others were definitely experimental. It's a fun game to pick up. Geist is a 7 out of 10. Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee is a fighting game based on Toho's Godzilla franchise. As the player, you take control of one of 11 giant monsters. The player must defeat their opponents via punches, kicks, and limb attacks. Each monster can use their signature beam attack and throw environmental objects. Army forces and the monster's Hedorah are also present and sporadically attack all the monsters. Extras include power-up orbs, which provide additional health, energy, unlocking finishing moves, or summon Mothra for an airstrike. Extra features include choice of several locations and a destruction mode, in which players complete to destroy buildings in a city, and melee mode, in which up to 4 players can complete simultaneously. This was a fun surprise, and Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee gets an 8 out of 10. GoldenEye Rogue Agent is a first-person shooter video game in the James Bond franchise, developed by Electronic Arts. The player takes the role of an ex-MI6 agent who is recruited by Goldfinger to assassinate his rival, Dr. No. Several other characters from the Bond franchise make appearances throughout the game, including Pussy Galore, Oddjob, Xenia Onatop, and Francisco Scaramanga. Despite being part of the larger James Bond franchise, this game has no relation to the 1995 film or the 1997 video game of the same name. Trust me, this was a bait and switch. They added the name GoldenEye because the character has a golden colored cybernetic eye. Skip this game. it gets a 6 out of 10. Ikaruga is a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up. This game features 5 stages, 3 levels of difficulty, and supports single player or 2-player cooperative mode. The player pilots the Ikaruga fighter, moving to avoid obstacles and other danger. This game was developed by Treasure and is bullet hell. It came out in arcades in 2001 and later was ported to the Sega Dreamcast in Japan. By 2003, the GameCube got its port, and this game is widely regarded as one of the best games ever made, especially in the shoot 'em up genre, and is one of Treasure's greatest works. This game is difficult, but if you want a great shoot 'em up, you cannot go wrong with Ikaruga. This game is a 9 out of 10. James Bond 007 Agent Under Fire, developed by Electronic Arts, was originally supposed to be a game based off the 1999 Bond film The World Is Not Enough. However, the game was delayed and eventually reworked into Agent Under Fire. Trust us, if you look at the cover art of this game, it is sneakily suspicious looking to Pierce Brosnan. Agent Under Fire features over 15 different types of firearms as well as other weapons. It was an okay game, and if you were thinking that this was going to be the next step from GoldenEye or Perfect Dark, you were sadly mistaken. Still, a competent first-person shooter from Electronic Arts. Agent Under Fire gets a 7 out of 10. James Bond 007 Nightfire is the follow-up to Agent Under Fire. In this version, Electronic Arts corrects a lot of the mistakes they made with Agent Under Fire. Firstly, the game uses the likeness of James Bond actor Pierce Brosnan, although the character is voiced by Maxwell Caulfield. Nightfire features 2 game modes for use, single player and a multiplayer mode. In the single player mode, players can complete a set of objectives which requires navigation around each mission and level dealing with hostiles and making use of gadgets. Completing a level is done by completing all objectives and reaching the level's exit goals. Multiplayer mode focuses on players battling each other with AI bots across a variety of stages. While some stages are based on levels from the game, others are based on settings and fictional locations based on the James Bond films. Overall, Nightfire gets an 8 out of 10. Killer 7. Originally one of the big 5 that Capcom was going to bring over to the GameCube as an exclusive. The game was written and directed by Goichi Suda and produced by Hiroyuki Kobayashi, and it follows an elite group of assassins called the Killer 7. The assassins' physical manifestations of a man named Harmon Smith perform hits on behalf of the United States government. Though these missions, Killer 7 uncover a deeper conspiracy regarding the role of Japan in US politics and secrets about the nature of their organization. The player battles enemies called Heaven Smiles in first-person view. Heads-up display on the left indicates the player's health. The eye weapon charge level numbers of vials and thin blood and the amount of collected thick blood. This was a strange game at the time, but it was beautiful to look at. Killer 7 is a 9 out of 10. Legends of Wrestling is a professional wrestling video game developed and published by Acclaim. This game featured a lot of unsigned WWE talent at the time, after the collapse of both ECW and WCW. So we've got Hulk Hogan in here, Bret Hart, RVD, Terry Funk, Jimmy Superfly Snuka, Jerry Lawler, and the Legion of Doom, amongst many, many others. The problem is, this game was still developed by Acclaim, who didn't have the greatest track record when it came to making wrestling video games. This game was an alright attempt at a wrestling video game, and the best thing about it honestly was the roster and some of the animations. The Legends of Wrestling game gets a 6 out of 10. Well, we're about halfway through our list today. So far we've seen some amazing games and some personal favorites of mine like Gauntlet Dark Legacy. Let me know in the comments what you guys like so far. Legends of Wrestling 2 is the follow-up to the Legends of Wrestling game. Again, we're going to see some legends come in here that are not available to play on other games, such as Bruno Sammartino or Roddy Piper or Scott Steiner at the time. With this one, the career mode was a little bit different. You can explore and play through different territories, but some characters wouldn't be able to do certain storylines. For example, if the player decided they wanted to use Jerry Lawler, the only storyline that he can play is in the Southeast region, and it's based on the famous feud LOTR had with comedian Andy Kaufman. The game also features a Create a Legend mode, and players can create their own custom-made characters which can be used for storyline as well as exhibition play. This game was a little better than the previous year, and still a 6 out of 10. The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker is a open-world action-adventure role-playing game. When it debuted, it had some controversial reception from the audience, as they weren't expecting a toon-like cel-shaded graphics. The Wind Waker's cel-shaded art made use of real-time lighting and effects, depth of field blur, and making the game look stylistically similar to an actual Saturday morning cartoon, and setting apart from every other game in the series. This game is my personal favorite Zelda game. I have completed it multiple times, and if you have a Wii U, they remade this in high definition. This game is a gem, and is a 10 out of 10. The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers is one of Electronic Arts' hits for the 6th generation of gaming consoles. It's also, surprisingly, one of my favorite games of the generation. A lot of the game is just hack and slash action game, based in a third-person perspective, and the game features levels taken either directly from scenes in the Fellowship of the Ring and or the Two Towers films. For example, the levels during the Defense of Helm's Deep is probably my favorite, and you get it early on, but it's very similar to the corresponding scene in the film. What I really enjoyed was the seemingly easily transitions from full motion video into the video gameplay. The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers is a solid game, and is an 8 out of 10. Lost Kingdoms is a 2002 action card-based role-playing game. It was published by Activision, and the game was released in Japan in April and North America in May. The story begins with substance known as in the game as Black Fog, and this fog is known for consuming people, towns, and other signs of civilization or life. Nothing ever to escape from within. The Lost Kingdoms, the fog invades the land of Arguil, and the home of the main character Katya, who is also known as the princess of this kingdom. Lost Kingdom is best known for its unique system of combat, and battles are played in real time where the player has to keep their character moving to avoid enemy attacks and plot which cards to use in the battle. Lost Kingdoms is a great game and had a follow-up, Lost Kingdoms 2. It is a 7 out of 10. Mario Kart Double Dash is a kart racing video game in which two players race in a kart against other two-player teams in 16 different courses. Like in previous installments, players pick up item boxes to receive a randomly selected item and use it to impede the opposition and gain the advantage. Some items such as shells and bananas allowed players to hit others and slow them down. 2 characters are selected to race together in the same kart. This is very different from any other game in the series and has yet to be duplicated. One is assigned to driving, while the other is assigned to using items and holding items. The players can switch their positions at any time during the race, and creates for a great dynamic. Mario Kart Double Dash is a game that I wish they went back to as far as the 2 players on one kart dynamic. And to me, it is one of the best racing games of the entire generation and gets a 10 out of 10. Medal of Honor Frontline is a first-person shooter video game developed by Electronic Arts. The player character is Lieutenant Jimmy Patterson from the American Office of Strategic Services. Frontline takes place during the events of the first game and chronicles Patterson's journey as he fights his way across Europe into Nazi Germany during World War II. This game was probably the pinnacle of the Medal of Honor series, as we know that a lot of the developers of this later went on to form Infinity Ward. This game is a great addition to any first-person shooter, and a great storytelling, especially in the World War II era. You had nothing like it in this generation. Medal of Honor Frontline gets an 8 out of 10. Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes. Serving as a remake of Metal Gear Solid in 1998, the gameplay of Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes was altered to resemble that of Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty. While all of the original areas and enemies were kept, new ways for the player to combat them were introduced, such as the ability to shoot from a first-person view. Enemy AI was improved, giving enemy soldiers the ability to communicate with each other and detect the player more intelligently with senses of sight and sound enhanced. Also backed up by the power of the GameCube at the time, the graphics were greatly improved and looked well above what we were used to in the Metal Gear Solid series up to that point. The entire English voice cast was kept to recut scenes and re-record dialogue. This game is a masterpiece, and if you like Metal Gear Solid, you have to pick this up. This game is a 9 out of 10. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, also known as Mortal Kombat 5. Like all Mortal Kombat games, Deadly Alliance focuses heavily on its fighting modes. The gameplay is completely different from that of its previous entries in the franchise. Each character now possesses 3 individual fighting styles, generally a 2-hand combat style with 1 weapon style, and which players can then switch between with the push of a button. In previous games, aside from a dial of combos, all the characters fought virtually identical, with only special moves to differentiate between them. The number of special moves per character has also been reduced, varying only from 2 to 4 at most. This game was a departure from the series, but is known to have revitalized the Mortal Kombat franchise. Very fun, tons of gameplay. Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance is an 8 out of 10. Metroid Prime is a 2002 action-adventure game developed by Retro Studios and published by Nintendo. This is the first time we get Metroid in a first-person shooter type game. It was such a huge departure and people were very nervous, but as soon as we got our hands on this game, we knew we were in store for a treat. The visuals still hold up pretty well for a game this old, and was a masterpiece at the time. Beautiful graphics, great gameplay, tons of exploration. Metroid Prime was a standout hit. This later came out on the Wii with pointer controls, and again for the Metroid Prime re-release remaster on Nintendo Switch in 2023. If you have a Switch, pick this game up. It is gorgeous. Metroid Prime gets a 9 out of 10. Metroid Prime 2 Echoes is the follow-up to the already smash hit Metroid Prime. The story follows bounty hunter Samus Aran after she is sent to rescue the Galactic Federation Marines from a ship near Aether, a planet inhabited by a race known as the Luminoth. She discovers that the troops were slaughtered by the Ing, a hostile race that came from an alternate dimension of Aether. Samus must travel to 4 temples to ensure destruction of the evil Ing, while battling them, wild creatures, space pirates, and her mysterious doppelganger, Dark Samus. This game just adds more to the already beautifully pleasing to the eye Metroid Prime series, and is a must-have. This game also had a multiplayer mode that could have really been something special had they developed it further. Metroid Prime 2 gets a 9 out of 10. Road. NBA Street is based on 3-on-3 street basketball. Aside from the basic structure of basketball, players try to collect trick points, which are scored through the use of almost every basketball game maneuver, such as doing fancy dribble moves, faking out defenders, shot blocking, diving for the ball, and dunking. If a team fills their trick meter, they get to perform a game breaker, which is a special shot that not only adds to their score, but it subtracts the amount from the opponent's score. Single player mode is called City Circuit and involves making a user-created player, touring famous American locations, and picking up teammates from NBA rosters along the way. This game felt like a true sequel to the NBA Jam series. NBA Street is an 8 out of 10. NBA Street Volume 2 is a sequel to NBA Street and falls in line with the same 3-on-3 street basketball mentality. The notable difference in this game is new trick moves and dunks, as well as introducing a level 2 game breaker. Players will also earn rewards after every game that they win, which can be used to purchase many rewards such as players, jerseys, and courts. If players win a certain number of games, some rewards will be automatically unlocked. In addition to Street Legends, players can also unlock NBA Legends, including Larry Bird and Julius Ervings, among others. NBA Street Volume 2 is another 8 out of 10. NBA Street Volume 3 focuses again on the arcade-style basketball 3-on-3 series. This time, what made this game stand out for me as a GameCube player was the addition of Mario, Luigi, and Princess Peach as playable characters. This was part of a deal that Nintendo had with EA Sports to have intellectual properties appear in EA franchises. Later on, we'll go over some games that also featured more Mario or Nintendo characters from the EA Big series. NBA Street Volume 3 overall gets an 8 out of 10.
No question, Mario's game is big.
Need for Speed Underground is a 2003 racing video game and the 7th installment in the Need for Speed series. The player begins the game in a circuit race set in Olympic City, driving a white Honda Acura Integra Type R. Unlike previous Need for Speed games, which featured sports cars and exotics, Underground features vehicles associated with the import scene. It was the first game in the series to offer a career mode that features a comprehensive storyline, and a garage mode that allowed players to fully customize their cars with a large variety of brand name, performance, and visual upgrades. All races take place in a fictional Olympic city. Underground was critically and commercially acclaimed, and was followed by the following game in our video. Need for Speed Underground gets a 9 out of 10. Need for Speed Underground 2 came out in 2004, again published by Electronic Arts. The game entails tuning cars for street races. Resuming the Need for Speed Underground storyline, Need for Speed Underground 2 provides several new features such as broader customization, new methods of selecting races set in a city known as Bayview, and the game stars Brooke Burke as the voice of Rachel Teller, who guides the player throughout the game. The game's storyline is presented in a comic book strip. There's also a Nintendo DS port that introduces a new feature, which the player can design custom decals on the touchscreen. This game is a must-have for any race enthusiast that has a Nintendo GameCube. Need for Speed Underground 2 is a 9 out of 10. So far, so good. We're about halfway through the list for this video. Need for Speed Underground is one of my all-time favorite games. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think is your favorite so far. NHL Hitz 2002 is an arcade-style ice hockey video game released by Midway. It is the first game of the NHL Hitz series, which Midway launched similar to the game NFL Blitz. This video game was launched for both Xbox and GameCube and was also released on the PS2. It differs from traditional NHL games in that it does not try to accurately simulate real-life ice hockey. The rules are much more relaxed, and the attributes of the players are dramatically increased, giving this game such a great arcade feel. The game features 3 players on the ice for each team, and you can get crazy fights that were included in the game. The rules are such greatly differed from the NHL that this game is just full-out arcade ice hockey hits. NHL Hitz is an 8 out of 10. PN03, or Product Number 3, is a 2003 third-person shooter developed and published by Capcom for the Nintendo GameCube, originally set as one of Capcom's Big 5 exclusive GameCube games. This game features a player called Vanessa Z. Schneider, a freelance mercenary working on a colonized planet. She's contracted by a mysterious client to destroy computerized amendment management systems, robots, and that have gone berserk. This game featured a cool white aesthetic, very rarely seen back then in that era. Also great graphics and fairly decent gameplay that was almost rhythm-based, with dodging being a huge gameplay mechanic. I thoroughly enjoyed this game, even though it was poorly received. In my opinion, Product Number 3 is an 8 out of 10. Pac-Man Vs. is Nintendo's spin on the Pac-Man series. It was designed by Shigeru Miyamoto and Nintendo EAD as a tech demo, originally, to show off the capabilities of the GameCube link cable. People can control Pac-Man on the Game Boy Advance and link it to the Nintendo GameCube, where 3 other players using standard controllers then get to control the ghosts on the screen, who get a minimized view of the maze. Pac-Man Vs. was a huge, fun game to play amongst us when we were all gathered around the couch. This game is a must-have, especially if you manage to get yourself a GameCube link cable and the Game Boy Advance. There is fun to be had here a long way. So, Pac-Man Vs. is an 8 out of 10. Pikmin is a 2001 real-time strategy puzzle game developed and published by Nintendo for the GameCube. The game was originally created and produced by Shigeru Miyamoto, and is the first entry in the Pikmin series. The main goal is to get your character, named Captain Olimar, back to his ship and discover parts as he crashes on a mysterious planet. This game had stunning graphics at the time. You get control of these small creatures called Pikmin that have different abilities. Red Pikmin, for example, can withstand flames. Yellow Pikmin are electric, and blue Pikmin can go into the water. This game was fantastic at the time, and in my opinion, a must-have for the Nintendo GameCube. Pikmin gets a 9 out of 10. Pikmin 2 expands on the gameplay introduced in its predecessor. The player controls both Captain Olimar and Louie from a third-person microscopic perspective to retrieve treasures, which consists of human waste such as scrap metal and broken toys, from the surface of an unknown planet called the Distant Planet. The gameplay focuses on leading and directing a horde of plant-like creatures called Pikmin to accomplish this mission. The Pikmin follow behind Olimar and or Louis as they move around the field. The player can quickly throw individual Pikmin at enemies and obstacles where they automatically engage in combat, destroying obstacles or building bridges. Pikmin 2 was a wonderful follow-up, expanded on the visuals and even further gameplay, and is another 9 out of 10. PK Out of the Shadows, known as Donald Duck PK in Europe, is a 2002 action-adventure game. Donald Duck works as a security guard in the Gauntlet tower as he falls asleep and starts dreaming of both Duck and teasing him. He wishes he was a superhero, an artificial intelligence known as given future technology.
Oh no, PK! It looks like the Avonians have captured some scientists and are holding them hostage. You're going to have to find the hostages and free them from these Avronian savages. You need to save as many as you can. They should be able to help you reach the Avronian mothership.
Platformer with some level design really use some work. I did enjoy the art style and the voice acting, however, which seemed to really capture that magic. Pokemon Coliseum is a 3D role-playing game, viewed from a third-person perspective, exclusively on the Nintendo GameCube. The player controls a Pokemon trainer named Wes, moves through various towns and other locations, traversed using a type of one-wheeled motorcycle, battling enemies, trainers, and completing quests. Items are purchased at the Pokemon Mart, locations using the game's currency Pokemon Dollars, and when a battle starts, the screen switches to a turn-based interface where the players and enemies, Pokemon, fight each other. Most battles are the double battle format, which means 2 Pokemon on each side at one time. However, each trainer can carry up to 6 Pokemon at one time. So once a Pokemon is defeated, his or her trainer must switch out another one unless no more are left. Battles are also conducted at the Coliseums in several cities. Pokemon Coliseum is an 8 out of 10. Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness is a follow-up to Pokemon Coliseum. The main focus of this game, like its predecessor, is to capture shadow Pokemon and fight them, and also file up their information in the Pokédex. This game garnered some mixed to positive reviews amongst critics, with common criticisms being directed at similarities and to have reused its assets from Coliseum. Commercially, Pokemon XD was a success, and it still sold more than 1 million copies since its release. It is an okay game. I disliked the idea of catching these shadow Pokemon, because most of the time it was just difficult to control or it wouldn't listen. It just wasn't my cup of tea as far as Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness gets a 6 out of 10. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time is an action-adventure puzzle platformer. The player controls the main protagonist, an unnamed prince from a kingdom in Persia. Environments are seen through a controllable third-person view. The camera views changes different positions triggered by entering certain areas or performing actions. The prince can be moved in all directions, and he is able to manipulate large targets such as blocks and levers connected to mechanisms, and this allows him to traverse. This game, you can clearly see with the platforming, the building blocks of what later was to become the Assassin's Creed series, and in particular, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remains my all-time favorite Prince of Persia game. To me, this game is a solid 9 out of 10.
That their king might say to them, as Khosrow said to Rustam, "You are the noblest of my warriors." From the moment my sword tasted blood, I knew this would not be my way. I would win my father.
Prince of Persia: Warrior Within was the sequel to Sands of Time. This time Ubisoft decided that they wanted the game to be M-rated. I'm guessing to compete with other games like God of War, maybe. Upon release it was still well received, but in my opinion, making it M-rated really took away from some of the magic that the first game had. I did, however, still enjoy this game. It was a solid platformer. The soundtrack was heavy metal. It was really violent, and overall, just a great 3D platformer, but just shy of the first installment for me. Prince of Persia: Warrior Within gets a 7 out of 10. Well, that brings us to halfway point on this list. Let's wrap it up with the next Prince of Persia, and the last one for that matter, and then let us know what you think are the best games so far. Prince of Persia: The Two Thrones is the final chapter of the Sands of Time trilogy, but it is not the last game to be set in this continuity. The story follows the prince as he returns to his home in Babylon, only to find that his actions in Warrior Within have undone the events of the Sands of Time. The villainous vizier is back from the dead and kills the prince's companion Kalina, absorbing the Sands of Time from her, which transforms him into an immortal monster. Now, the prince must work together with his past love Farah, whom he meets for the first time in this new timeline, to defeat the Visor once and for all, while also struggling against his own Dark Prince persona, which is slowly corrupting him. They later came out with a revised version for the Wii. Prince of Persia: Two Thrones is a 9 out of 10. R Racing Evolution is a spin-off of the Ridge Racer series, brought out on the GameCube. If you bought the GameCube version, it also came with a separate disc with Pac-Man Versus on it. R Racing Evolution is a racing game featuring over 33 licensed cars from various motorsports, and in-depth configuration options such as adjusting brakes, front-wheel stabilizers, and car weight. The game offers a story mode where the player follows the racing career of Rena, as she struggles to deal with the busy life of a professional racer, car driving, and politics of the sport. The mode features 14 chapters in which the player earns new cars, RP points for new purchases, and view pre-rendered cutscenes preceding every chapter. Other modes include usual racing game fare such as single races, time attacks, and versus mode, and car customization. R Racing Evolution is a 7 out of 10. Resident Evil is the 2002 remake of the 1996 PlayStation game. This game featured brand new overhauled graphics that looked incredible on the Nintendo GameCube. It was originally released as a GameCube exclusive. This game was mind-blowing at the time, and I loved the new visuals. Of course, upon release, Resident Evil received acclaim from video game journalists who praised its new graphics, improved gameplay, and the overall of the original game. It is often described as one of the best, scariest, and more visually impressive entries in the Resident Evil series. Resident Evil 2002 Remake is a 9 out of 10. Resident Evil 0 is the prequel to the original Resident Evil game. This game was originally designed as a Nintendo 64 game in 1998, but pushed back to the GameCube. And what an amazing decision! Using the updated visuals, the GameCube version absolutely shines through and through. This survival horror game was one of the first times that I picked up a game knowing that I wouldn't finish it because, frankly, I don't like to get scared and pay for it. However, Resident Evil 0 received generally positive reviews across the boards and critical praise for its graphics and audio. Resident Evil 0 is an 8 out of 10. Resident Evil 4, designed as one of Capcom 5's exclusive GameCube games, was brought over as a franchise, probably the best version of the franchise, and it brought exclusively on the Nintendo GameCube originally. This game is the first one to really turn it into an action survivor horror game, with an over-the-shoulder camera view when you're shooting things. It completely changed the controls. The graphics were amazing for the time. If you had the Wii version that came out later on, you got pointer controls, which made the game even better. Resident Evil 4 is highly regarded as perhaps the best Resident Evil game in the entire franchise. please do yourself a favor. Pick this game up. It's available on pretty much anything under the sun. This game is a 10 out of 10. Well, there you have it. The list for this week's GameCube Collection Guide. And what a way to finish it off with Resident Evil 4. As always, leave that like, share, and subscribe. Please let everyone know what you're looking at, and we're trying to get to 1,500 subscribers. Let us know what you think. Leave a comment below. And I'm Anthony. See you guys next time here at Star Flag Media.